Today, we're going to head back into the world of Krynn as Wizards of the Coast finally gives us Dragonlance. Kind of. Up next. What is up, everyone? This is Everything Board Games, and I'm your host for today, Paul, known as the Techno Funk Boy. So, if any of you had seen my kind of now defunct YouTube channel, a huge portion of it was dedicated to Dragonlance. I've actually been spending the last few years taking a party, DMing a party through the original modules and kind of updating them for 5th edition as I go, and just doing some videos along the way on, just some general DM tips and all. I started this practice many years ago, and a couple of years ago, and along the way there's been a couple of hints that Wizards was finally going to do Dragonlance. I was actually at the time pretty pumped about that. As time has gone on, I became more and more wary of that happening, just because of the direction that Wizards has been going as a company and the overall quality of their more recent products. Dragonlance is one of those that's special to me. All right. So I wasn't actually allowed to play Dungeons and Dragons as a kid. And really my first taste of D&D was through Dragonlance Chronicles novels that a friend suggested that I get and read, and I've now read them a couple of times. I absolutely adore them, and so I've been wanting for them to kind of translate the War of the Lance into 5th edition for a while. There was obviously a 1st, 2nd edition version of the game. Margaret Weis's company made a 3.5 edition. That's actually really, really good. We'll talk more about that at a different time. But 4th edition did not have Dragonlance, and so and also like the like DM's Guild, that as if you create for Dungeons and Dragons, there are certain properties that you are allowed to use. Dragonlance has not been one of those until just now, and so there haven't even been any real fan translations into 5th edition that have been published. But we've just gotten Shadows of the Dragon Queen, our first 5th edition Dragonlance campaign. This isn't out in stores yet because I pre-ordered through D&D Beyond. I got access to the kind of the early release material there. My book has not come in yet, but I got a chance to look at it. This is not going to be a full review. This is just my impressions so far. I have not been able to run this game yet, and I do have a party lined up to start it, and so I might come back a little bit and give my thoughts. But I kind of wanted to give my overall impressions of what I'm seeing so far. The first one is kind of the bad news. It's not very Dragonlance-y. There's a lot of the names that are the same, and there are a lot of kind of the overall situation that is there. This isn't a source book. This is an adventure. At the same time, it does have some really good like history sections in it that are really, really good. There's a lot of stuff that's just really lacking or just not understood properly. When the Unearthed Arcana for the Kinder came out a long time ago, there was so much complaint that they changed it and mostly fixed it. But now kind of coming back to it in context, it's still not quite right. The way the book handles the Kinder is not quite there, and it seems to be kind of a combination of not understanding the source material, but also Wizards of the Coast weird obsession lately that there really aren't any differences between the races, and so they've modified the Kinder so they wouldn't be the way they have historically been, but are rather just small versions of what everybody else is doing. I kind of feel the same way about some of the other situations. Not giving any spoilers to the story at all, but they do some interesting stuff with like Lord Soth that I think is intriguing, but at the same time, it is breaking from the lore quite a bit, and this is standalone. I think it's interesting. In light of everything else, there doesn't seem to be a real deep understanding of what Dragonlance should be. All in all, it's one of these things that feels somewhat familiar, but not quite right. And one of the real problems here is that there's, when you take away all the things, for example, that make the Kinder cool, then they're not cool anymore. They're just halflings that are the same as every other race. And this has been my general problem with this kind of flattening everything out, not giving anybody any weaknesses and making everyone the same, is that if you do that, you take away something that makes them special. Kinder are notoriously difficult to play, and when they release the Unearthed Arcana, there seemed to be quite a bit of pushback initially from people who were basically making them kleptomaniacs, which they're not. But this is going to be one of those things that, like, as a dungeon master, if you really want to get a feel for what makes Dragonlance special before running this game, read the Dragonlance Chronicles by Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman. They are exceptional novels and are really going to give you insight as to what makes this world turn and why it's different than Faerun, and why it's different from everybody else, and why it is special and unique. So that's kind of on the side. There's good news though, and that is, I was kind of expecting a complete disaster, and it's not. It's not. A lot of it is really interesting. The story is pretty intriguing, and while it is extremely railroady, I don't know, that kind of fits, because that was the criticism of the original Dragonlance novel modules. It is very railroady, and so look, if your party is one of those types that is like, it's like, no, I must be able to walk in every direction, this one's not for them. If your party is one that that is looking for a good story and much more strategy focused, this one is pretty interesting. Now, this is where this product breaks from the normal module. You can get the book, which I did, or you can also get the board game with it. And the board game is built is a part of the adventure. All right. The board game is where you're going to do tactical battles, large scale battles. I didn't get the board game. I mean, even if I don't have access to it yet. And so I don't know how exactly that's going to play out at this point. I think it's an interesting idea. And it's Dragonlance has always been much more of a large scale type of adventure. And so I like the idea. I like the idea of bringing in larger scale battles for this product in particular, because this is the one that really could use it. If you've played like the original modules, some of the modules had rules for larger scale war games, because you'd have big dragon fights and all sorts of cool stuff. The other thing that should be mentioned in this is an adventure for levels 1 through 10, and I've my party in Dragonlance has always joked that there's a lot of dragons and not a lot of lances, because you don't find a lance for good ways into this adventure. There's not a ton of dragons in this. This was one of the interesting things about like the original modules, is that so basically the campaign made up 12 modules, and each module had a dragon fight in it. Now, there might be something special about that fight that made it easier for level 3 or 4 characters to win it. Or different situations that are happening that allow this fight to happen when a dragon is fighting a low level party. But there's a dragon fight in every one. And that was quite literally a reaction to people complaining that, hey, this game is called Dungeons and Dragons. There's not a lot of dragons. And when Tracy Hickman and Laura Hickman were talking through, what this game was be, it's like, okay, well, let's give them some dragons then. And it turned out to be pretty cool. There's not a ton of dragons in this. There are dragons. There's not a ton. It does seem to be, and this is not a spoiler, because this adventure will resolve. It resolves quite nicely. It does seem to be set up for the possibility of a sequel. And Wizards has done this before. It kind of lined up a couple of of adventures that would kind of feed into one another. This one being kind of the first. Dragonlance was the first like really big multiple module massive campaign. That feels okay. Yeah, that feels right here. So I'm still excited about running it. And so like this, my first reaction definitely is mixed here. But there's a lot of positives going on here. I like the story. I'm curious as to how it's actually going to play out. I like the situation. I don't like a lot of the background stuff, but that's why DMs are here, right? We can fix that. I think that I think there's potential here, and there's a lot of mistakes here, a lot. And a lot of not paying attention to the lore when they really should have. But that's kind of par for the course these days, isn't it? Unfortunately, quite some time ago, I did a review for Tasselhoff's pouches Tasselhoff's pouches for everything, and it is a source book made by Dragonlance Nexus that was free on their website, and they got special permission from Wizards to release it, but they weren't allowed to sell it or anything. They are now we're going to be able to do Dragonlance on DM's Guild now, and so there's going to be a second edition coming out. I would, without knowing all the changes in it, I thought the first edition was well worth the time, especially if you're going to have somebody in the party who is a Kinder. Because frankly, you need a good trinkets list if you have somebody in the party who's a Kinder, because Kinders are the type of characters that reach into their pouches and they find something there that they didn't know they had. I will give a tip that I heard from Margaret Weiss herself on playing a Kinder, or if you have a Kinder in the party, is that the way she always ran a Kinder is that there's an agreement between the player and the DM. If you shake hands with a character, that character will lose an item that finds its way into your pouch, and you don't know what it is. The DM keeps track of it, and when you start pulling out things from the pouch, then this is the time that you find stuff like that. This is why you need a good trinkets table. All right, and So I highly encourage to kind of follow that as well as this. I will definitely be getting the second edition of that book to use kind of along with this one as I'm running it, because I do think that there are gaps in this book that need fleshing out quite a bit. So that is my kind of my initial thoughts on Shadow of the Dragon Queen. Appreciate you hanging out. As I play more of it, if y'all are interested, we'll kind of dive back into parts for a more full review of things. But until then, please do check out everythingboardgames.com for reviews of all sorts of board games, role-playing games, and the like. If you are not subscribed on YouTube, please do hit the subscribe button. While you're down there, hit the thumbs up and the bell icon. The bell icon is going to let you tell YouTube to let you know when we have new videos up, and that way you can stay up to date with all the releases coming out. Thank you again, and we will catch you next time. Before I forget, if you are interested in my campaign through this book, head on over to twitch.tv/technofunkboy. We are going to be streaming the game, and so if you follow me there, then you will be kept up to date with my party's adventure through Kryn. Talk to you later.